Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I'm pleased to welcome you to this month's IFRS 17 Expert Live event. I'm joined today by Stuart Eden, Legerity own CEO and Head of Delivery, to answer your question here live. Hi, Stuart. How are you doing?
Hi, morning, Nicholas. Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you. And morning to everyone on the call.
Perfect. So we're excited with today's session, and we will focus on one specific topic: implementation. We received a number of questions around this subject and thought you might want to discuss this with Stuart here live. So in terms of the process that we'll follow, we'll first answer the question we received from the email and then address any questions you ask in the comments. So you can either drop us an email at info@legerityfinancials.com. You have the address down below. Or you can drop us a note in the comments on LinkedIn, and we'll make sure to pick it up. If we don't have time to answer your question, we'll make sure to get back to you after the event. So let's start with the first question. So, Stuart, how can firms mitigate against missing, incorrect, or incomplete data or poor data quality?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, in the projects we've done and are doing at the moment, we see that data is likely to be one of the key, if not the key, challenge for most IFRS 17 implementations. So it's critical that the project allows sufficient time to understand the data requirements and to develop the extracts that are needed to meet those requirements. I think you will find that as you go through that process, you're going to identify gaps in the data, and we'll need to work through how those can be addressed and how the solutions to that can be developed. Are there workarounds for that? I think it's also very likely that you're going to uncover data quality issues. Again, it's something we see pretty regularly across projects. And data quality issues don't always get fixed quickly, but it will be important to make sure that there are, for key and critical data quality issues, there's a program of work to separately address those running alongside your IFRS 17 implementation, and that the IFRS 17 implementation has an approach to dealing with the issues that may arise from the poor quality data. At Legerity, we have a very structured approach to how we do our implementations and how we address data. So we have an event framework for each methodology, so GMM, PAA, etc. And we work through with the client in the early stages, or one of the first things we do through the event framework. And we agree with the client all the events that are going to be required for their needs for that IFRS 17 implementation. So we develop that framework, and each event within that framework has its own data sourcing specification. We call it an interface contract. So very quickly we develop the framework, and then we have a very structured set of data requirements for that. That doesn't solve the whole problem, but it certainly identifies the data that we're going to need to receive to process IFRS 17. We'll obviously give that to the client, and then we'll work with the client to assist them in terms of sourcing the data, the various levels of aggregation that need to take place, etc. And then obviously working to address any issues or gaps that may come up with that. I think final point just on data, I think all the work up front is really important, but it's very likely that you're going to identify issues in data when you get into testing, particularly in SIT, but probably more likely in UAT. The data you think you're sourcing, you're going to find some issues that you don't know you've got. So it's really important, again, to make sure you've got plenty of time in that phase to address and accommodate any data issues that you identify through testing.
That's very interesting. And actually, based on what you're saying, is there any way for the people to do the implementation without the data, the actual data? Is there a way for them to move forward on the implementation path without having straight away the data ready?
Yeah, certainly. So I mentioned before the sort of event framework and the interface contracts that we have. We also have a modeled set of data that supports those. And that's really useful, so we can show what the data actually looks like to the client, which helps the client with their own sourcing. but also in terms of as we configure the subledger itself, we've got some data that we can start to play through it. So we do have a sort of a manufactured clean set of data that we usually use for our first sort of passes through to make sure the events are configured the way we expect and we're getting the results we expect. We will then move to using actual data as it becomes available.
Amazing. Thank you, Stuart. Okay, so the next question is really around the lessons learned. Have you any lessons learned from the design phase of each project?
I think the key lesson to learn is always expect the unexpected. So I think every time we do an IFRS 17 implementation, we find out something new that we didn't perhaps know before or expect to find. So you always expect the unexpected. I think to deal with that, though, you have to be realistic. You have to allow sufficient time around your data, as we discussed. That's likely to be one of the big areas of the program to get right. So really just be realistic around your timing, and be realistic in terms of what you're going to be able to expect from the data as well. You are going to have some workarounds most likely to deal with that. So you need time to deal with that. I think the other key thing that we see challenges with on various implementations is think about the timing of your testing program as soon as possible. So make sure you've got the right people thinking about testing. So you've got a testing manager or someone involved to think about testing, that they're engaging with the right groups. Testing is a great opportunity to get the functional line teams involved. So get that engagement going early, and be very thoughtful around the test scenarios and expected test results that you're going to achieve. So you can do some good thinking around that early in the project before things get too crazy in other areas. That's always beneficial as well.
Okay, no, that's very good. And maybe a follow-up question on this one. Could you talk us through a robust change management process to avoid project slip?
Yeah, sure. So again, I think robust planning is absolutely critical to avoid the project slip. But even the best plans that you're going to make are likely to experience some level of change. As I mentioned before, expect the unexpected. So yes, you can do your plans, but be ready to flex those. I think around that, establishing the right project governance upfront is really, really important. The forums need to have clear mandates regarding their accountabilities. They need to be active, and there needs to be the right sense of ownership. This can't be seen to be someone else's problem. The best projects we work with are those that have really, really active steering committees. And it's such a difference to work on a project like that versus one where the project team is largely left to get on with it because management or senior management are not that interested in it and they're not engaged. Those projects struggle because you're going to need to have a lot of decisions you're going to need to make throughout the life cycle of the project, particularly early on. There are probably some key decisions you'll need to make in the early phases of the project. If you're not making those decisions quickly, then you're putting the whole project under pressure and you're likely to result in slippage. And you certainly don't want to make bad decisions that you then have to reverse. So get the right governance in place. Make sure it's effective and empowered. Don't be afraid to call that out if it's not. Not getting the support of the project, a view of the project, and not getting the support that you need from the Steerco or whatever the governance authority is, the design authority. Call that out. Make that someone's problem to focus on and address.
No, great. Thank you very much. So I received another question that's based on the first question we were discussing around the testing phase. What are some of the possible risks during the testing phase?
Yeah, so I've talked about data, so I won't bash on that again, but that's an obvious one. I think I also mentioned doing the planning early, and that's really important so that we've got the right resources available. We need to have key resources that can be involved in the testing. They need to be dedicated or have significant amount of time so that they can do that. If you're trying to ask people to do the testing alongside their day job, then something's going to slip, and they're both important, so you don't want either of them really to slip. So make sure you've got dedicated resources. It is a great opportunity to get the functional line teams involved. It lets them understand IFRS 17 better, in terms of what the inputs are going to be, what the outputs are going to be. It certainly lets them, or gives them a good training session on the technology that they're going to be using. So it's a good learning session for them on that as well. Lack of preparation's a challenge in testing. So not having the right use cases and expected results. So you need to again get on top of that early. And then I think practically just making sure you've got the right processes to support testing. So, whatever tooling you're using, be it Jira or ADO or one of those tools, make sure that that's set up well, has the right structures in it, so that it is a tool that can be used by everyone. You're going to get clear reporting and good management information from that. You will likely end up with quite a lot of defects as you go through this process. It's kind of inevitable. Some of those will be due to lack of understanding, so that becomes sort of a training opportunity. Some of those could be genuine defects, but you really need to have a good track of those and be managing through that process.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much. Now, actually, it's a little bit more of a generic question. How have you projects vary depending on the type of insurer? Okay,
I mean, it's I guess there's a few ways to look at this. One is size. So sort of in the early stages when we were looking at IFRS 17, we were probably by and large dealing with larger insurance companies, and they had quite complex requirements and demands. I think the industry was still finding its way a little bit, and we tended to do those projects as what we would call enterprise solutions. So pretty much built from scratch, very customized for that client. And those tended to be and are still running, a lot of them, pretty significant implementations. So sort of 1,500 man days, that sort of size of project. So very significant. As we're evolving through the IFRS 17 sort of timeframes, and we're getting closer to the deadlines for go live, we're starting to see a lot more smaller mid-tier sort of insurance companies who clearly need a solution. And are interested in how they can do something smaller, lower cost, much more quickly. So we've developed an approach called Fast Post Express. I think we've done sessions on that previously, where it's very pre-configured, set of events and frameworks, so that we can very quickly get a client sort of live and up and running on those. Those tend to be size-wise, 350 to 450 man days, depending on how many sort of different methodologies are involved in that. So, they're significantly less effort than those earlier ones. We're leveraging a lot of the learning that we did there. So, it's a much more sort of cookie-cutter approach to those implementations. If you look at it at types of business, the sort of the general insurers versus the life insurers, general insurers, a lot of PAA type contracts tend to be simpler, don't have some of the sort of complexities of how the CSM is managed and released over the life cycle. So those tend to, in general terms, be a little bit easier than so the general tend to be a bit easier than the life. We're also starting to see a lot of interest from reinsurers, and I'm not quite sure why the reinsurers tend to lift it a bit later than perhaps some of the underlying insurers. So we're seeing a lot of that at the moment. And in general terms, a reinsurer is not that different from an insurer; it's just the other way around. But I think the one area that we are seeing a lot of focus on and attention on is under the IFRS 17 rules, how reinsurance contracts are applied against the underlying insurance. And I think, in terms of what we can see in the market, there are a lot of challenges with that. I think the rules are pretty complex, and building an approach to solution that is difficult, and I think is attracting a lot of focus from a number of firms that are working on this. We've built a solution for this now, so we're really proud of that. It's something that's leveraging our sort of allocations capability that's in the tool as well. So, but it took us, we were working on that in Q4 last year. It took us quite a while to work through that and actually build and implement that. So, so we're very pleased that we've got that in place now.
And that's a very good point, actually. That was one of my follow-up questions, where I see with a lot of the people I'm speaking with, the reinsurance side of it has been pushed back and back and back, and now people are trying to address that. Yeah. And a lot of people come back to us with challenges that they had with their initial strategy and trying to find ways to address the reinsurance side of the business in the right way.
Yeah. No, exactly. It is perplexing a number of people at the moment, and scratching our heads for a long time.
Yeah. Actually, just for the people watching, we did an amazing webinar a month ago, 2 months ago, about reinsurance. So if you want to watch it, just go on our website. In the resource page, there is access to that webinar. The next questions get a little bit more technical. What are the benefits of doing the allocation in the calculation engine?
Yeah, so I mean, there's allocations are a sort of a essential part of doing or building an IFRS 17 solution. We've seen both approaches. Building standalone complex allocation algorithms, it's time consuming and it can be error prone. So in an application such as Legerity, we have a flexible and robust allocation engine or functionality that simplifies this requirement. And I think it certainly makes it cheaper and easier and probably more reliable to implement. So we're sort of batting for our own runs there, but it is something we certainly would encourage to build within the tool wherever possible. You get the benefit of creating and managing that alongside or within the framework of a sort of a double entry accounting approach. So it's not like you have to bring a set of data and then work out what to do with it. You build it, you develop it, it creates the double entry for you as you do that. And obviously applies the expenses where necessary.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next very technical question is around, should we do the grouping inside or outside the calculation engine?
So I think some calculation engines can support grouping, and Legerity is one of those, but it does create an extra step in the process. So the contracts need to be sent to the calculation engine where they're grouped, and then they need to be sent back to the sort of external environment so that data can be processed and aggregated into those groups, so the actuarial systems, etc. I think if the upstream environment has the capability to perform the grouping, or it can be done upstream, I think it's a simpler solution. But if not, then that certainly can be done within Legerity and I think other calculation engines as well. But it does, as I say, create that extra step. It's a one-time step, because once it's grouped. So, but it does need to be factored in. We've done it both ways. So it's definitely something you can do both ways.
Okay, thank you very much. And now just the last question. It's actually on this one, I would like to invite people to watch our webinar on general insurance, because it's, as a general insurer, we're considering Excel as a solution for IFRS 17. Would that be enough to comply with IFRS 17? And yes, we did a very, very good webinar last week around general insurance and the challenges that they're facing. And this question was partly addressed during that webinar. So we'll put the link in the comment down below, and I invite everybody to watch it if this is one of your questions.
Yeah, so and it is a good question. I mean, I IFRS 17 isn't prescriptive as to the tool you need to use to do IFRS 17. If you had enough people and enough calculators, you could do it on pad and paper if you really wanted to, but I certainly wouldn't recommend it. And I wouldn't really recommend Excel either. There is a lot of complexity in IFRS 17. We again have come across clients that have built Excel solutions or prototypes, and we're actually working with a couple of clients now that have abandoned those because they ran into a lot of challenges with the robustness of the calculations and the lineage and the transparency of the data. So they were getting results, but they couldn't really map the results or understand the results, and the audit trail back through the Excel with lots of cells and lots of formulas just wasn't robust. So we've got a couple of situations now where we're coming in to implement Fast Post Express to replace the Excel. So yeah, definitely as a tool can be used, but I think it's a very dangerous approach, and just from a auditability perspective, I think you're going to likely run into some issues and some challenges. So we would certainly recommend using a proper tool with a robust approach and methodology.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Stuart. And actually, that was the last question, as I said. So that brings us to the end of today's Meet the Expert session. Stuart, I just want to say a big thank you for all your insights.
Very welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Great. So just now to finish, a quick word about Legerity. As many of you know, Legerity, we developed an award-winning IFRS 17 solution based on 3 principles: enterprise-grade functionalities, out-of-the-box configuration, fast-track implementation. And Legerity has been recognized by InsuranceERM and the industry at large as the IFRS solution for addressing your IFRS requirements. We believe that tackling IFRS 17 in the right way will not only help you streamline and de-risk your project, it will also help you deliver transformational benefits that will go far beyond IFRS 17. So if you're interested in hearing more about Legerity, you can contact us on our website to arrange a call with our IFRS 17 experts. You can also invite you to follow us on LinkedIn, where you will receive all the content, the webinars, and those live events to be able to know more and get your knowledge around IFRS 17. I want to thank you all for attending, and I look forward to speaking with you next month. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
IFRS 17 is complicated and brings a big change in global accounting standards. As an insurer, you will have lots of vendors trying to get your attention. Our approach at Legerity is different. It's based on decades of experience in accounting rule software and delivering IFRS 17 projects for some of the world's leading firms. Fast Post Express does exactly what it says. It's everything you need to be IFRS 17 compliant, quickly, with no fuss, and will set you up for the future, whatever that might bring. Other solutions can be heavy, complicated, and often designed for other purposes, even other industries. All the stuff that just weighs you down. Some are positioned as light, but are full of empty promises. In fact, you actually end up spending more time, money, and effort than you were led to believe. And if you're tempted to solve in-house, you will find out the hard way that IFRS 17 isn't a problem you can tackle with spreadsheets. So why compromise? With Legerity's Fast Post Express, you get an enterprise-grade IFRS 17 solution, pre-configured and SaaS delivered from a team with a track record of success. You benefit from a reduced implementation time, complexity, and expense, giving you regulatory peace of mind and a clear path beyond compliance. Insurance is about managing risk. Choosing your IFRS 17 solution shouldn't be one of them. Legerity. It's our business to take care of yours.